Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. So this video will double as a bit of a heavyweight news mashup, so a bit of the new and also a little bit of the old in terms of a couple of things couldn't get to in recent days, but I do want to touch on, including we seem to be at the brink of Usyk and Joshua being announced, and Joe Joyce seemingly going to have a voluntary of his EBU title. A defense, that is, I should say. But starting with Alexander Povetkin, so you can see here on screen, so this was posted to his social media, and it's a press conference. It's in Russian. I have no idea what was said, but it was his retirement press conference, and this little statement here on the right, so just simply translated, I finished my career, thank you for all your support. A couple of other posts there as well, another one where he fronts the camera and just jumping across again, he says thank you all. A third one that sort of emerged on his social media, he must have been giving interviews galore in Russia, so he also said it was time to go on the air, thank you again. So I guess Alexander Povetkin, much like his demeanor and persona during his boxing career, which was 16 years in total, started in 2005, again, you know, understated and not making a big deal of things, at least in comparison to some others who would really go over the top with retirement and other news of a similar nature. But Povetkin retires with a record 36 wins, 3 losses, and 1 draw. That 1 draw being with Michael Hunter. And I guess you have to say that Alexander Povetkin, at least in the last decade, was one of the best heavyweights of the decade. So he certainly had the staying power, fighting right throughout the 2010s, turning pro in 2005, as I mentioned, and retiring after his knockout loss to Dillian Whyte. That was the 3rd loss of his career, the 2nd knockout, the 1st knockout being against Anthony Joshua. But I guess you would probably say the win that he had against Dillian Whyte, which was in 2020, that sort of uppercut that absolutely decapitated Whyte, left him on the ground, and despite claims Whyte was trying to get up at 8, you know, he wasn't getting up at 1800, he was done. Dillian Whyte, probably the best win on his career, at least in recent years. He also had some good wins in the last few years of his career. Hughie Fury, David Price, Christian Hammer, had that draw with Michael Hunter, but his record sort of speaks for itself in terms of, at the point that he fought them, a lot of these guys were decent contenders. Maybe now we look at some of them and go, they're pretty faded, like Mariusz Wach, Johan Dorper, Andrei Rudenko, but often at the time when he fought them, they were still relevant contenders. Good fight against Mike Perez, good win there. Carlos Takam, that was an exciting fight. You have that knockout against Mahmoud Shah, where Shah calls him on and then he gets sparked out. Obviously the loss, the title loss to Vladimir Klitschko, but other wins against the likes of Andres Wawrzyk, Hazim Rahman, Marco Huck, Ruslan Chagayev, Nicholas Further. Further down as well, you have former champion Chris Bird, all the way back in 2007. So it is a record that is littered with good wins. Maybe you could sort of make the argument here, I'll just get rid of this ad on the left there. You could make the argument that Povetkin had a really good career, but did it really have that capstone win that maybe he sort of needed to, you know, a couple of really good wins to sort of cement himself. Geez, these ads just won't give up. Yeah, I've been bombarded with these Triller Fight Club ads for this weekend's fight. And they just seemingly pop up. You turn them away and then all of a sudden they're back. Anyway, but I think Povetkin's career, it was very good and one of the best contenders of the past decade, but maybe he fell short of his potential to some degree. Remembering an Olympic champion all the way back in 2004 at Athens, had very good wins, as I mentioned, but maybe lacked some of the elite names. There it goes again. It's that ad just jumped up again. Yeah, and I guess also with Povetkin, you know, some people's view of him was some of the performance-enhancing drug stuff that sort of emerged through his career, the couple of occasions where he sort of fell. I mean, some of that stuff was a little bit more complicated than it sort of appears on the surface, but, you know, however you look at it, there was the sort of spectre of that, the sort of stink associated with that because of what happened. But I think in recent years, people have got over that, and clearly he's been fighting passing tests and, still having some good wins of note, although getting sparked out a couple of times in recent years, Joshua and White respectively. But Povetkin, a good career. He was a consummate professional, never, really got into, too much of the trash talk side of the game. He preferred to be the sort of quiet, silent assassin, and he did get some very good wins, and he showed you can be a professional. You don't have to just chat and, crap, and you can still become a big name in the heavyweight division. But still, maybe lacking a win or two, but I think he will be remembered as a very good heavyweight, because he was. 16-year pro, he achieved quite a lot, maybe not as much as people expected, but a good career nonetheless. So I'll just X out of some of this stuff, and we will get to the next item. So, Alexander Usyk, Anthony Joshua, seemingly on the verge of signing papers, and Team Usyk, you can see from the story from a few days ago, looking forward to signing papers, and some of the details haven't been disclosed, but you'd have to imagine, and bearing in mind there was obviously a little bit of negativity towards Usyk from Eddie Hearn and a few others a couple of weeks ago. It sort of died down as the negotiations really got into the nitty-gritty, and I think people needed to remember that actually it was a negotiation. It was all about business. It wasn't really personal, and they probably have negotiated a rematch clause for Anthony Joshua. Let's face it, that probably is going to be in the contract, but they are targeting the 62,000 Tottenham Hotspur Stadium for the fight, and I guess we'll have to see when that would be held. But I was thinking about this, and it's going to be good. Just like Fury Wilder being back in Vegas in a decent-sized stadium, the T-Mobile Arena, Joshua having a stadium fight and back in the UK hasn't happened for a few years, even before the pandemic. Obviously, Joshua in 2019 was engaged elsewhere. He had the fight in the United States against Ruiz, lost that rematch in Saudi Arabia. The pandemic hits, they don't have the Kubrat Pulev fight in the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium as they would like to do, and now in 2021 it looks like they might actually sort of achieve that, and a stadium fight back in the UK after a few years. So I guess it'll be good to get that big fight feeling back, those big events, it's almost novelty type events because they don't come around often. And, it really is going to be something, after all this sort of for boxing, a big event in the UK, and it's good for boxing in general. These big fights with Usyk and Joshua, Fury and Wilder, and I know some people aren't too enamored with the Fury-Wilder 3 fight, but it's still a big fight. But I'm looking forward to this getting made so we can talk about the fight proper, because I think Usyk, he's really got a bit of an uphill sort of battle to take those belts. What sort of strategies is he going to come in with against a guy who's got the height, the reach, and can box on the move? So there's a number of interesting facets with that. But still, a couple of things, actually I'll go to this one first. A little bit of the fallout from the whole Joshua and Fury thing falling over. Eddie Hearn and Bob Arum back and forth. But this here, Michael Benson, Eddie Hearn responds to Bob Arum's comments on the AJ Fury collapse. It was my fault because I was greedy with Saudi. He's unquestionably the greediest man I've ever met. Bob Arum, he's talking absolute. He needs to go. What was it Naz said? Just finish. And Tyson Fury, he's also taken a few shots at Eddie Hearn, blaming him the collapse of the Fury-AJ fight on Hearn, saying so-called world-class lawyers. Every Saturday he announced it would be finalized next week. Pretty stupid, all about ego. It's egg on face. That's what happens when you talk too much. So, the irony with these comments as well, because Tyson Fury, he actually announced the fight was happening. And also, world-class lawyers, it was a case of Fury's lawyers being involved with Deontay Wilder's lawyers, not Eddie Hearn's lawyers being part of that arbitration. So make of it what you will, the blame game, trying to sort of spread it around here. There's plenty of egg to go around here, but Eddie Hearn wasn't involved in the negotiation, the arbitration, which he had been told wasn't a problem, assured by the likes of Bob Arum it wasn't a problem. So make of it what you will, just sort of starting to sort of throw some muck around and hoping something sticks. Also, though, Tyson Fury on Joshua versus Usyk. Usyk is a southpaw, clever, technically very good. He's smaller, but he handled Derek Chisora, who was physically tougher than Joshua. So I'm absolutely confident of beating Wilder. I'm not so sure about AJ not losing his fight. And just getting over to Joe Joyce, so I'd heard the news that he was going to have a voluntary of the defense of his EBU title, so that European strap picked up against Daniel Dubois. So see here, this is the situation of the titles page on the EBU website. Still lists that Joyce versus Hook, saying deadline purse offers. So perhaps it's going to be that the plan is, because below it says a defense for voluntary Joyce versus TBA Queensbury promotion. Maybe there's going to be a voluntary with the intent of then facing Marco Hook afterwards. But, you know, you'd have to imagine Joyce maybe after this next fight will want to be on to bigger and better things, be closer into the title mix for a world title, not just defending an EBU strap. But who's it going to be in terms of, if they're talking July, which Frank Warren is, he's thrown out the names of Tony Yoka and also Carlos Takam. Takam feels more likely. The whole Yoka fight doesn't feel right time, and for the EBU strap, I would have sort of, saw that fight happening a bit later, for something a bit more meaningful, but also at a month's notice. Is it really realistic? I'm not so sure. But Takam, he's looking for work. He's looking for a good fight, and that could be his he could see that as his entrance back into, a heavyweight contention, that sort of thing. Because at this point, Carlos Takam, at about 40 years old, he's taken a few losses in recent years. He's sort of drifted out of the title picture. But it's a very tough, hard fight. And for this stage of Joyce's career, because he's still only, just over 10 fights in, it's another good stepping stone type of fight, Carlos Takam. He can get some valuable rounds out of that one. So if it is going to be anyone out of the two, probably Takam. But it wouldn't surprise me if it is someone else. But at this short notice, who would it be? Maybe they would try to draft in a Christian Hammer or a Marius Vuk or someone like that. I don't know, we'll have to see. But drop a comment, loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.